very much needed, and significant reform of food and drug laws is very much needed. I ask unanimous consent my opening statement be inserted into the record at this point. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent.
Without objection.
I'd like to begin by making a couple of observations. We have renewed PDUFA on a number of occasions and have expanded it to a number of other activities by Food and Drug where a fee is now paid willingly by the industry. Each time this legislation has been extended, it has been extended with the active support of the industry. I authored PDUFA for some very interesting reasons. This committee conducted an extensive investigation of Food and Drug involving some serious misbehavior, accepting of gratuities and things of that kind, because of the fact that the agency did not have the resources to properly handle the issuance of permits for new pharmaceuticals. And the end result was there were huge numbers of complaints from industry and some very unfortunate corruption existed in the agency. One of the interesting things, and I hope my colleagues will listen to this, about PDUFA, and one of the reasons that it and its half-sisters and brothers have been supported by the industry is that a good pharmaceutical brings into the manufacturer, or did at the time it was first put in place, about $250 million a year. And if each time that a company found that it is delayed in putting a pharmaceutical to work and get it approved, that company finds that it has massive losses stemming from the fact that it cannot market while its patent, which exists for 17 years, is running. Food and Drug does not have the resources to do this. Now, Food and Drug is also moving forward to see to it that they have legislation which would enable them to begin to collect fees for certain changes in the law with regard to other pharmaceutical regulatory activities by that agency. These would impose the same burden on foreign manufacturers who are now bringing in huge amounts of counterfeits and other unfortunate things into this country, to the great detriment and the hurt not only of our law, but also of American manufacturers and Americans who are being poisoned. I would observe that we had a rather hideous example of this when a lot of Americans were killed or hurt seriously by heparin, which came in. So these questions, first of all, to Commissioner Hamburg. Has the law kept up with the changing environment, yes or no?
No.
It is badly in need of change, is it not?
Yes.
And you have a number of changes which you will suggest for the record on this matter. Is that not so?
We would love to work with you on this.
And, but the answer is yes.
Yes.
It is also so that these will enable you to address not only changes in domestic production and law as regards domestic production, but also with regard to the foreigners who are now sending in huge amounts of unsafe pharmaceuticals that you simply do not have the resources to address. Is that not so?
It is correct.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes.
Now, does Food and Drug have the authorities and the resources to adequately oversee such a heavily outsourced drug industry? Yes,
we don't currently have the resources
you
or
don't,
the
you
authorities
don't have the resources, do you?
to fulfill as we would like our mission.
Good. I'm giving easy questions. These are all yeses.
It's hard to answer just yes or no.
Unless I indicate otherwise. Now, will you submit for the record the key authorities that FDA needs to oversee the drug supply chain?
With pleasure.
Now, one of the additional problems that you have is that the components are now coming in from overseas. In the case of heparin, it was the components which caused the damage to the health of American people, was it not?
We believe that the contaminant was introduced into the crude heparin preparation, yes.
Thank you. Now, I have, Mr. Chairman, an analysis of H.R. 1483, the Drug Safety Enhancement Act of H.R. 201 of 2011, and I would ask unanimous consent that it be inserted into the record at this point.
Without objection, sir.
Madam Commissioner, one last question. You are familiar with the provisions of 1483. They're significantly similar to the additional powers and resources that Food and Drug received in the last a couple of Congresses ago to address the question of food safety. And you are finding that those new authorities are working very well there, are you not?
Those new authorities are very, very important. We, of course, are struggling to fully implement the demands of the Food Safety Modernization Act, but we are moving forward, and the additional authorities really are able to put us in a position to do things that are very, very important to prevent problems and address them swiftly.
And they particularly allow you to control imports and to address the question of possible seizure of unsafe pharmaceuticals, which you had previously no capacity to address. Is that not so?
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, I've used more time than I'm entitled to. Thank you for your courtesy.
Chair, thanks, gentlemen. Recognize the gentleman from Georgia, Dr. Gingrey, for 5 minutes for question.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.